What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing you another video. So today I'm doing something I haven't done in quite some time. Many people will remember that for a long time I was doing a lot of Power Rangers Dino Charge reviews. This is another one. This is episode 9 finally. The thing was that the episode actually at first was supposed to be releasing on the 29th, then it got pushed back to the 22nd, and then for some reason it was released even a week earlier than that online. So as of like the 15th of August, technically it was available, though not everyone has watched it or done much about it, because of the fact that the only way you would really know is if you watched it on Twitter or if you found it out through an article online. So otherwise you would have no knowledge that it was happening. But the thing was is that back when it was supposedly going to be released online, the idea was is that if they got 500 likes for them to release it a week early on the internet, then they would post it, and it happened for sure. And we got the episode early, and so I thought, okay, let's do a review, because we're finally getting those episodes back and things are exciting. So the episode is, I'll tell you this right now before I even start, I liked it a lot. It was an interesting episode, logical way to start, going further into that glow and going in glow from the previous episode and expanding on the whole entire Terrorzord, what do you call it, ordeal, like just in general, giving it more hype, giving it a little bit more detail, because after all, I mean, that's going to be our special ranger, like our main special ranger. I mean, there's 10 rangers this season, which is a huge deal, but I mean, Gold is our main one. So anyway, the episode starts off with Wrench trying to test out the Terror Charger, to possibly use it in some way with some machines. Sadly, it's not working that well. Sledge speaks to Fury about how poorly he's doing with the Energems, and how the Energem tracker got destroyed, and how he wasn't able to acquire it properly, because as we might remember from the previous episode, Chase ended up destroying the Energem tracker, which was both a good thing and a bad thing. Good because then Sludge can't use it and Fury can't use it, but at the same time it's a bad thing because then the Rangers can't use it and they need it. So Sledge is all annoyed, and Sledge is ready to kick Fury off the ship finally, but Fury somehow manages to convince him otherwise with a plan to use some technology to get the Terror Charger working, since they actually do have it. Meanwhile, back at the base with the Rangers, we see Riley using his brain, which is interesting because, as you might know, I mean, he's smart, but the thing is that it especially shows here, and you have to consider this, he lived on a farm, and I'm not saying that farm kids aren't smart, but his intelligence definitely shows, and his wise ways definitely show in this episode, and really show that he isn't just some person. Like, he actually is a smart person. We see him using some contraptions. We see the Rangers talking about the Energem tracker, and not all the Rangers are there. Chase is in there. Chase is actually going to get like pizza for them, just because, I mean, hey, they're hungry. At the same time, Riley and the Rangers are talking, and they're talking about how in order for the villains to gain the power to use the Dino Charger that they have, they need to power it up. And the thing is, they don't have the Energem, they only have the Charger. But in order for them to, and since they don't have the Energem tracker, in order for them to power up the Charger, they're going to need some advanced technology, meaning that they're going to need it from a lab. This deduction leads to them going out of their way to try to find where a lab would be that might hold that kind of technology. So we then see some kids at a lab. The kids at a lab playing with these massive sized chess pieces, basically playing a game of chess, and we see the villain for the episode known as the Puzzler. The Puzzler is an interesting looking villain, one that looks like he has a puzzle basically drawn all over him, and he's a puzzling figure, ha ha ha. So anyway, what happens is that he is there to guard the guard the lab so that no one gets in and so that no one can bother them while they're trying to get the technology to power up the charger to use to summon the Pterosaur. So what happens is that Puzzler is doing his job, and eventually, at one point, we then see him get frustrated and annoyed after being left by Fury, who was the one that told him to do all this stuff. Gets frustrated and annoyed because he sees the kids playing chess poorly and not making the smartest moves, so he goes out and complains to them and basically says how terrible they are at chess, and then the kids freak out because, I mean, hey, he's a monster. As you might remember, I mentioned previously, Chase was going to get pizza for the other Rangers. What happens is that when the kids freak out, they run in the direction of Chase. Chase is on his skateboard, and they end up knocking into Chase, and the pieces fall over, which is not really a great thing. So then he's completely annoyed, of course, Chase, and Chase then reacts by trying to figure out what's going on, why they're reacting that way, and sees the Puzzler. So then he goes after the Puzzler and tries to fight back and says, like, you owe the Rangers new pizza or something, or new food or whatever, and they end up attacking. They end up using the large chess pieces on each other, basically whacking each other with them. Eventually, the other Rangers come to Chase's rescue, and soon enough, the Puzzler goes back into the lab. While in the lab, though, the Puzzler goes around and begins to change the layout, creating more of a maze-like environment, and eventually going to an area in the building which has a map in it, and directly changing things from the map of how the layout would be and what kinds of things could happen. And they also even change, like, the temperature. So the idea was that at first it was somewhat cold, but as things got progressively further on in time, it would get colder and colder until they would freeze to death. And also the puzzle being so circuitous and crazy, it really made you wonder what would happen. So eventually, though, the Rangers go into the building and they decided to split up, which is not the best idea, especially since this whole thing just happened with Puzzler. So yeah, they're really clueless as to where everyone is. And the thing is that there's no clear way for them to get back and meet each other at one point, due to the fact that there's only one real way to get moving. Each of the Rangers tries to go through their own different paths. For example, Tyler ends up going into a doorway, ends up coming out like 2 or 3 doorways down. Shelby goes up a staircase and ends up at the bottom of the staircase she had just gone up. What else was there? Chase ends up opening a door which basically, if you walk out of it, you're gonna fall to the bottom of the ground and basically get killed, more or less. So. And Kota is searching for food, since he never got food and he was very, very hungry. So he was searching around for some food and finds a vending machine which has a cookie in it. The thing is, he tries to shake the vending machine. The cookie doesn't fall out, and he's very frustrated. He tries to look for cash, and he finds like a quarter underneath the vending machine. And there's a whole entire goofy moment with that, with like where he puts the quarter in and the cookie doesn't come out, it gets stuck or something, and it's a whole entire silly moment. He just gets frustrated. In the meantime, though, as I mentioned, all the Rangers are having their own problems. Riley is, with his clever mind and deductive reasoning, realizes that they have to think out of the box, and realizes that maybe the metal grates are where he has to go. He opens up some metal grates and finds out that's right. As he travels through the grates, though, he finds that Fury and Wrench are doing their experiments on the Terra Charger. Basically, they're using Fury to power up the Terra Charger with the lab equipment, which you may think, what kind of lab equipment is it? It's basically medical equipment, which is kind of interesting. So that's kind of different. Anyway, the whole entire scene, if you've watched the original Power Rangers season 2 of it, for Mighty Morphin, You might remember an episode known as White Light. That was the episode. Well, it was a two-parter, I believe. White Light. Very, very classic episode. One of the most important episodes for season 2, especially since that was when Tommy came back and returned as the White Ranger after losing his Green Ranger powers and basically being a character that was kind of come and go. White Light was an episode where he gained new powers. So the idea is that in that episode, Billy was going through some ventilation shafts and he finds the White Ranger suit being made and the White Ranger being created. In this case, it's similar to that because like he goes through a ventilation shaft and he sees like someone on a examination table similar to that. And in this case, it's Fury, and Fury is basically being used to power this Terror Charger. So it kind of has that White Light vibe going for it, and I just kind of like that. I kind of feel like that's kind of cool, and it's kind of interesting that they kind of incorporated that with that. And I'm not sure if I'm sure they probably realized it, but at the same time, it's kind of cool because it's not something you wouldn't necessarily expect them to include in some way in this episode, but it works well, and it also gives Riley a sense of what that glow was from the previous episode that Tyler saw from Fury. And what's assumed is that basically that glowing energy was being used to power up the Terror Charger. It wasn't even Fury's own energy, it was the glowing energy. So, anyway, that all happens. The Charger does get powered up by that glowing energy, and following this, Riley wants to speak to the Rangers, but sadly doesn't work out because the Dinocoms aren't working properly. But eventually, Riley does get to the top of the building, hears the plan of Fury, and that all happens, as well as Riley ends up even giving each of the Rangers a hint by throwing a pebble down, like a rock down at where each of the Rangers are located, basically hinting as to where they must go to get out, which is, in each case, it's a metal grate. Like, that's the only way you can move around, otherwise you're going to get stuck like they were. This does help them, and they eventually do get out, and they end up fighting the Puzzler, as well as some Bevixes. Meanwhile, though, Fury summons the Terrorzord, who manages to do it successfully, and following this, the Rangers, when they see the Terrorzord finally show up, have to go into Pararaptor mode, and they have to fight the Pararaptor mode of the down charge Megazord, and they deal with it, as well as having to deal with Puzzler, which Sledge uses a Magna Beam on Puzzler to make him grow large and act as a helper to the Terrorzord, seeing as to how the Terrorzord is evil at this point. Anyway, that all happens, logical stuff, what you would expect. Anyway, and then they use one of their down-charge blast attacks with the down-charge Megazord, and ends up like knocking back Puzzler into the air. While he's knocked into the air, the Terrorzord sees it as though the Puzzler's attacking the Terrorzord, and the Terrorzord ends up destroying Puzzler as a result, basically ending Puzzler's existence, but at the same time, the Terrorzord's still around. So that all happens, and just so you're aware, we only get to see the Terrorzord in as its as the pterodactyl form itself, not the Megazord form. So that, I believe, is supposed to happen in episode 10, maybe, I would think. Anyway, following this, Fury calls back the Terrorzord's Charger and realizes that he has to power up again to fight the Rangers, and this time he'll probably just use that alone, or he'll do something with it. That all happens. It's interesting. And eventually Riley and Tyler speak to each other about their experiences with the glowing light, and that's about it for the episode, more or less. So, they get food in the end. That's great. But overall, it's a good episode. it had a clear story going on. It also finally got us into the point that we could finally see what the Terrorzord looked like. Because I mean, though I know from Kuro Oger, the Sentai, for a person that hadn't seen it, that never knew what the Terrorzord looked like, it's a big deal because they talk about it enough in the show, and we finally get to see something of it. I mean, that's great. I mean, we haven't seen the actual Megazord yet, but we've seen it in that form at least, so that's not too bad. I mean, we haven't seen the Golden Ranger himself yet, but that's gonna come pretty soon, in like the next episode or two even. I mean, I definitely want to say episode 10 or 11 looks about right. It's either one or the other. We'll finally get to see him. Whether he's good or not, yeah, I'll have to see. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I know it's a little bit of a somewhat long one, not too long, but just about right. I really did like this episode. I thought it was good. It had an interesting side. It definitely focused on Riley this episode, which is cool, and especially since every episode really has a clear focus on who is the character that they really want to give attention to, and they always try to give attention to the Rangers well, and it's done to an extent where you feel like you're actually learning something about these characters, and there's actual story rather than, oh, we're just gonna like have a mission and that's about it, and there's no real clear background on these characters that's growing. It's really just, I mean, that's great. They really try to give it they've really given these characters stories, and that's something that we always appreciate with this season, is the fact that they're slowly showing that they can, that the current version of Power Rangers is good. It's a really, like, I really will say that it's probably the best, probably one of the best versions of Power Rangers they've done in the past 5 years. One of the best, and I appreciate that because we haven't had a good season for since like Samurai even. I mean, Samurai was pretty good. It wasn't the best ever, but it was a good time. Both of those. Both Samurai and Super Samurai. So Downcharge so far is looking good, and I hope you guys enjoyed this again, and please remember to like, comment, subscribe, check out the other reviews, check out all the other Power Ranger related content on this channel and other things in general on this channel, and I'll see you guys in whatever video I make next, and goodbye guys.